The first sound wasn't a voice. It was the sharp electric crack of a camera flash, then another, then a burst, until the entire ballroom pulsed like a storm of shattered lightning. Reporters shouted over one another, microphones scraped against metal stands, and somewhere near the back a speaker hummed with a low feedback whine. A voice boomed through the speakers, steady and ceremonial. "Please welcome Ava Sterling, the most influential CEO of the decade." The applause hit like a wave, but it wasn't warm. It was hungry. Ava stepped into the glow of the stage lights with the controlled breath of a woman who had rehearsed strength for years. She moved the way powerful people do, measured efficient, her heels clicking in rhythm like a metronome, keeping time with a life too full to stop. Behind her, the giant LED wall shifted through images, magazine covers, billion-dollar contract signings, a packed global conference where her speech trended for 3 days straight. Then, briefly, almost tenderly, a photo of her walking beside a boy of 13. Evan. His eyes weren't angry, just distant, like he wasn't sure he was allowed to be close. A ripple of murmurs rolled through the crowd. Ava felt it. She always felt it. She pressed her palm against the podium, letting its cold metal steady her. Stay composed. Stay in control. Breathe. Her father taught her that. Control was oxygen. But the next reporter's voice sliced straight through her professional armor. "Ms. Sterling, any official comment on the reports that your son, Evan Sterling, has escaped from the residential treatment center?" The room tightened. Cameras clicked faster. Someone whispered, "Is the live stream still rolling?" Another said, turn it up, this is huge." Ava's breath faltered. Another question hit. "Is it true?" He left a note. Something about not wanting to be part of your image anymore. Her chest constricted. Somewhere in the back of her mind, a memory played Evan tugging at her sleeve years ago, asking if she'd come watch him play basketball. She had smiled, kissed the top of his head, and said, "After this meeting, sweetheart." Then another meeting came. Then another. She forced her voice to stay steady. "My son is." But the truth choked her. The ballroom, once full of noise, suddenly felt too quiet. The tension pulled at her like invisible hands. Finally, she said it. Slowly, carefully, painfully. "I built a world where millions of people don't feel alone online." A heartbeat. Yet my own son chose to disappear from mine. Gasps. Then silence. A silence heavy enough to hear the faint whirl of the AC unit above. Ava stepped back from the podium. Her fingers trembled. She didn't wait for her PR team, didn't wait for the next question. She just walked. Her heels hit the polished hallway, click, 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 each one sharper than the last. When the doors closed behind her, she pressed her back to the wall, let her breath break free in tight, uneven bursts. He's out there, alone. And I didn't even notice the signs. She covered her mouth with her hand, trying to catch herself before she fell apart entirely. But she was still live. Millions watching. None of them seeing her, just the symbol they carved her into. Across town, an old TV buzzed faintly in a cramped apartment where the floor creaked with every shift of weight. A replay of the press conference flickered across its dusty screen. Ryan Hale's sleeves rolled up over a cheap uniform shirt, folded laundry methodically, shirts, then pants, then Chloe's socks with the tiny stars on them. He didn't need the screen to look. He'd heard enough voices crack under pressure to recognize the sound of a mother's breaking heart. Chloe sat cross-legged on the floor, coloring in her sketchbook. The soft scratch of crayon against paper was the warmest sound in the room, but she kept glancing up again and again at the woman on the screen. Her small voice slid through the quiet. "I don't like watching grown-ups pretend they're fine when they're about to cry." Ryan paused mid-fold. That sentence hit a place he tried hard not to visit. A hospital room he didn't reach in time. A goodbye he never heard. He cleared his throat gently. "Yeah, kiddo. Sometimes grown-ups do that." Chloe looked at him, really looked, and Ryan forced a small, steady smile. "All right," he said softly. Time for me to get ready for the night shift." He stood, grabbed his work jacket, and walked toward the tiny bathroom. Behind him, the TV voice droned on. "Authorities have released an updated missing poster for 13-year-old Evan Sterling." Chloe's eyes lifted again. On the screen appeared the face of a boy not smiling, not angry, just lonely. His dark hair falling over eyes that looked like they'd learned too early how to guard themselves. Something in her tightened. She didn't know why, but she couldn't look away. Ryan emerged, keys jingling faintly in his hand, the sound of another long night cleaning office floors while the city slept. Dad Chloe whispered, still staring at the poster. "He looks really sad." Ryan glanced at the screen. Yeah, tough situation. But Chloe wasn't listening to him anymore. That boy's face had carved itself into her memory. Later that night, when the lights were off and the apartment settled into its usual soft creaks, Chloe lay on the top bunk, eyes wide open, listening to the hum of the old radiator. She whispered into the darkness. If her son feels that lonely, it must be really, really bad. The bunk bed gave a faint groan as she shifted. Far away in the city, a billionaire CEO sat alone in the back of her silent car, and a missing boy walked through the cold streets, hood pulled low. Their worlds had already begun to circle toward each other. The Red Swing was waiting. Somewhere in the night, the wind passed through Red Swing Park, pushing the old swing into a slow, eerie creak, like it remembered something the adults had long forgotten. The weekend arrived with the soft percussion of basketballs thudding against cracked concrete. Red Swing Park faded paint-bent rims, and the familiar metallic whine of its old swing breathed with its usual neighborhood chaos. Children shouted plays they never stuck to. A dog barked at nothing, and above it all drifted the steady squeak of wheels from a rusted grocery cart someone had abandoned years ago. Chloe Hale stepped into the park with her sketchbook tucked beneath her arm. She liked this hour the way the world felt open, noisy enough to feel alive, but not so loud that it drowned out her thoughts. She waited for the right patch of shade, then sat at her favorite bench, the one facing the red swing. Her pencil moved almost before she thought about it. Lines, curves, quick strokes. Drawing made things make sense, feelings people, even the things grown-ups avoided saying out loud. Across the court, someone else was drawing too. He sat at the far bleacher's hood pulled low despite the warm afternoon. His sneakers didn't match the park, too new, too clean, too expensive to belong to a place held together by duct tape and hope. He hunched over his sketchbook, shoulders curved inward like he wished he could fold himself into the paper. The neighborhood boys noticed. One bounced his basketball toward the bleachers and called out, "Hey, rich boy, you lost," or something. Laughter followed sharp, careless. The boy in the hoodie didn't move, didn't lift his head. His fingers tightened around the pencil knuckles, paling. He stayed small, still silent. Another voice jeered, "What your fancy mommy didn't send you with a GPS." More laughter. Chloe felt the anger spike in her chest. Not the loud kind, hers was quiet, contained, but just as sharp. She closed her sketchbook, slid off the bench, and walked straight toward the group. "Leave him alone," she said, not yelling, not shaking, just firm. "He didn't say anything to you." The boys exchanged looks, annoyed by her audacity. But Chloe didn't back down. Her dad always said confidence didn't need volume, it needed grounding. And Chloe had that. One boy scoffed and tossed the basketball from hand to hand. "Whatever. Come on." They drifted away, still muttering, but gone. Chloe didn't look at the boy right away. She returned to her bench, sat down again, and opened her sketchbook. She sketched the playground like nothing unusual had happened. The broken fence, the leaning street lamp, the swing whose chains sang every time the wind brushed through. After a minute, she heard a page flutter. The boy's sketchbook had caught the breeze. A single sheet lifted, exposing what he'd been drawing. A woman on a stage spotlight on her, hair falling neatly over her shoulders, power in every line of her posture. Beside her, him, smaller, younger, back when his eyes weren't so guarded. Chloe recognized her instantly. Ava Sterling. She had seen that exact posture on TV just last night. The boy snapped the sketchbook shut so fast it made a soft thump. He stood like he might run. Chloe didn't turn her head. She didn't want to spook him. "It's okay," she said gently. "I'm not going to tell anyone. I don't like people who gossip." He hesitated, still ready to bolt. But something in her tone, calm, unintrusive, made him pause. He gave a small nod, then walked away. Not far, just far enough to feel safer. His steps were soft, almost soundless on the concrete. Chloe didn't chase him. She never chased frightened things. That night, the sound of the old TV seeped into the apartment again. Low volume, but enough for Chloe to hear as she colored at the kitchen table. Ryan washed dishes, letting the faucet's steady stream mask the replay of Ava's trembling voice from the press conference. Any information regarding Evan Sterling? There it was again, his face, the missing poster, Chloe's pencil stilled mid-stroke, the hoodie, the curve of his jaw, those eyes tired, lonely, searching for something he wasn't sure existed. And suddenly her heart thumped hard. "Dad," she whispered. Ryan dried his hands on a towel. She walked closer to the screen, eyes wide, as if something was clicking into place. I think I saw him today." Ryan blinked. Who? She pointed to the TV. Him. Evan Sterling. Ryan let out a soft breath through his nose, a mixture of disbelief and concern. "Sweetheart, lots of kids look similar." Her voice didn't waver. "It was him, I'm sure." Ryan crouched to meet her eyes. "You need to tell me why you're so certain." She swallowed. Her fingers tightened around her sketchbook. "Because he wasn't happy," she said quietly. "Not angry, not scared, just sad in a way people don't pretend about. Like he didn't fit where he was, but he already expected that." Ryan stared at her, something shifting behind his steady gaze. He knew that kind of sadness too well. Still, he didn't say anything. Not yet. And Chloe looked out the window toward the dark park across the street. The red swing moved, pushed by a breeze they couldn't hear. She took another breath, then said it soft, trembling. "Certain. Dad. I think I met the boy the whole city is looking for." The radiator hissed. The apartment settled into its nighttime groans. And somewhere outside the park exhaled like it knew this moment mattered. Chloe stepped closer to the window, staring into the shadowed park. The red swing swayed as if someone invisible had just stood up from it. She pressed her hand to the cold glass and whispered, "Tomorrow. I have to find him again." Ryan didn't sleep much that night. Even after Chloe drifted off, her breathing soft, her small hand curled near her cheek, he lay awake listening to the familiar hum of the radiator and the distant bark of someone's restless dog outside. Every sound felt sharper than usual, like the world itself was waiting for him to make a choice. By morning, Chloe was already up, clutching her sketchbook against her chest. She looked like she'd been rehearsing a truth she needed him to hear. "Dad," she said quietly, "I know what I saw." Ryan rubbed the back of his neck, heavy-eyed. "Honey, it's a big city. Kids look alike." But Chloe stepped closer, her voice soft but steady. "If I were the kid missing, wouldn't you want someone to tell you? Even if they weren't sure, even if they were scared." That landed like a punch to the place he guarded most. A memory surged, the sound of a phone buzzing on the break room counter. His wife's name on the screen. His decision. "I'll call her back." 2 minutes. 2 minutes that never came back to him. Chloe watched his eyes shift, watched his breath catch the way it always did when he slipped into that memory. She whispered, "I don't want someone else to feel what you felt, Dad." The words broke him open in the gentlest way. Ryan closed his eyes for a moment, exhaled, then knelt so he was level with her. "Okay," he said softly. "Tell me everything you remember." An hour later, Ryan stood at the kitchen table with the phone in his hand, thumb hovering over the hotline number Ava Sterling's company had plastered across every screen in the city. He felt strangely exposed, as if he were calling a world that didn't usually have space for men like him. Men who worked night shifts, lived paycheck to paycheck, and prayed their kids didn't see the fear tucked beneath their calm. Dad Chloe sat beside him. He inhaled deeply and pressed the call. Static clicked, then a sterile, automated voice. "Thank you for contacting the Sterling Emergency Information Line. Your call is important. Please hold." Music played something overly cheerful, too bright for the moment. Ryan grimaced. He waited through what felt like entire minutes of that thin, chirpy tune. Finally, a human voice answered, tired and stretched thin. "Sterling Support Desk? How can I assist?" Ryan cleared his throat. My name is Ryan Hale. I think my daughter may have seen Evan Sterling yesterday." He expected urgency. Instead, the woman asked mechanically, "And what makes you believe that, sir? Not rude. Just exhausted, like she'd already fielded 100 false alarms." Ryan glanced at Chloe for strength. She noticed details. The way he held his sketchbook, his shoes, his posture. She recognized him from the posters. There was typing on the other end. "Location Red Swing Park," Ryan said. That finally created a pause, real attention. "One moment, sir." The hold music returned softer this time, but still invasive. Chloe swayed nervously on her toes. Ryan rubbed her shoulder. After nearly a minute, the voice came back. "Sir, Ms. Sterling would like to speak with you. In person." Ryan's stomach dipped. "In person? Are you sure?" "Yes. She'll meet you at the Sterling headquarters today. Afternoon. Security will expect you." The line clicked off. Ryan stared at the phone as if it had just handed him a responsibility he wasn't certain he deserved. Sterling headquarters towered over the city like a glass monument to people who made decisions that affected the world. Ryan had cleaned floors in buildings like this before, but never walked in through the front doors. The revolving doors whooshed with a soft gust each time someone passed through. Inside, the marble floor echoed every footstep, including Chloe's small ones. Her sneakers squeaked a little, and she tightened her grip on Ryan's hand. "Dad," she whispered. "My stomach feels twisty." "Mine too," he admitted. They stepped into an elevator whose walls gleamed so brightly that Chloe could see her reflection. Nervous eyes, hair slightly messy sketchbook pressed to her chest like a shield. When the doors opened, Ava Sterling stood waiting. She was composed, but barely. The kind of tired that seeps into a person's voice before it reaches their face. Her suit was impeccable, but her eyes had the hollow sound of someone who hadn't slept in far too long. "Hale," she said gently. "Chloe." Chloe gave a small nod, intimidated. Ava gestured toward a private conference room. Once the door closed, the world softened. No cameras, no reporters, just the quiet hum of the building and 3 human beings facing the truth. "Please," Ava said, "tell me what you saw." Ryan began carefully recounting the park, the hoodie, the sketchbook. But when Ava's questions grew sharper, faster, more frantic, it made him bristle. She leaned forward. "Did he speak? Did he mention where he was staying? Did he seem—" Ryan lifted a hand, surprising even himself. "Ms. Sterling, if you talk to your son the way you're talking to me right now." A beat. I'm starting to understand why he ran. The room froze. Chloe's breath hitched. Ava blinked. Once. Twice. When she finally exhaled, her voice wasn't hard anymore. It was raw. "You're right." Her throat tightened. "Please, continue." Chloe stepped in, then her voice soft but confident. She described the drawing Ava on stage, Evan beside her. The expensive shoes, the tremor in his hands, the way he tried to disappear into himself. Ava covered her mouth. "That's him," she whispered. "That's my boy." Silence followed heavy trembling. Then Ava stood abruptly, her chair scraping lightly against the carpet. "If he was at that park—" Her voice shook. "Please, take me there. Tonight." Keys clattered on the table as she grabbed them with a desperate urgency. The city outside buzzed faintly through the glass windows. Ryan met Chloe's eyes, fear-hope, and something unspoken swirling inside both of them. Ava whispered, "I'm ready. Let's go find my son." The engine of her car roared to life in the night, carrying all three of them straight toward the red swing waiting in the dark. The night air carried a thin mist, the kind that softened the edges of streetlights and made every distant siren sound farther away than it really was. Ava's car glided through the narrow streets near Red Swing Park, quiet neighborhoods where porch lights flickered and old bikes leaned against rusted chain-link fences. Inside the car, no one spoke. Chloe sat in the back, her sketchbook hugged tight against her chest. Ryan kept his hand steady on his knees, though his pulse betrayed him. And Ava. Ava drove like a woman caught between hope and terror, gripping the wheel so tightly her knuckles looked bone-white even in the dim dashboard glow. When they reached the park, the hum of the engine faded, replaced by the faint patter of drizzle beginning to fall. The swing creaked once as if greeting them. Ava opened her door gently as if afraid the sound itself might scare her son away. "Where did you see him?" she whispered. Chloe pointed toward the bleachers. "Up there. He was drawing." Ava swallowed hard. "Okay." They stepped deeper into the park, shoes on wet pavement, distant laughter from an apartment window, the soft buzz of a street lamp struggling to stay lit. Then movement. A small shift of shadow near the bleachers. Chloe's hand darted out. "There." Ava froze. Ryan steadied her with a quiet nod. On the metal bench sat a boy in a damp hoodie hunched over elbows on his knees, staring at the ground like the world had already decided too much for him. "Evan," Chloe whispered. He looked up sharply, eyes flashing in the dim light. When he saw her, his posture stiffened. When he saw Ava behind her, he jolted to his feet, panic slicing across his face. "Ava," Ryan murmured slow, but Ava was already stepping forward, breath-shaking. "Evan." Her voice cracked. "Sweetheart. Please." He backed up, shoes sliding on the wet concrete. His hood fell slightly, revealing tired eyes and damp hair plastered against his forehead. "You're not supposed to be here," he snapped, voice trembling more than sharp. "You always find a way to show up when cameras are rolling. Thought this place wasn't important enough for you." Ava flinched as if struck. "There are no cameras tonight. Just me. Just us." Evan gave a bitter laugh, too harsh for someone so young. "That's what you told the doctors too, right? Just do what's best for him." "They kept saying I was progressing. I'm not a project mom." The rain thickened, pattering softly on metal and concrete, a rhythm that filled the silence between each breath they took. Ava stepped closer, slowly, deliberately. "I never wanted you to feel like a project. I was trying to fix things I didn't know how to face." "That's the problem," Evan's voice cracked. "You tried to fix me, but you didn't want to talk to me." He pointed toward the red swing rain dripping from his sleeve. "You remember that, Mom? You said you'd come watch me practice." His voice lowered to a whisper. "You never came." Ava's heart clenched. She remembered that day. She remembered the contract she chose instead. She remembered telling herself that one broken promise was harmless, not knowing it was one of many he never forgot. She took one careful step forward. "Evan, I'm so sorry. I should have been here. I should have listened. I should have... No." His chest rose and fell in quick, unsteady breaths. "You should have been my mom before you were everyone else's hero." That undid her completely. Water dripped from her hair, from her lashes. She didn't bother wiping it away. "I can't undo what I missed," she whispered, "but I'm here now. Tell me how to help you. Tell me where you've been sleeping. Tell me if you're scared." Evan shook his head, retreating a step. "You'll drag me back to that center. I'm not going." Ava's breath caught. "I'm not here to take you anywhere you don't want to go." He looked doubtful. Hope and suspicion clashed in his eyes. Chloe finally stepped forward, her small voice cutting through the tension. "Evan, you don't have to run. Not from her. Not from us." He stared at her. Really stared, as if trying to decide whether to trust the person who stood up for him the day before. Then the storm broke open inside him. "You don't get it," he whispered, voice shaking. "Everybody wants something from me. The doctors want data. The journalists want a headline. Mom wants a version of me that makes sense for her world." He looked at Ava, eyes wet. "I don't fit in her world." Ava's breath shuddered. "Then let me come into yours." For a moment, the only sound was rain hitting the bleachers. Evan looked away, jaw clenching. "No," he said softly. "You missed your chance." Then he ran. He bolted through Puddle's feet, splashing across concrete, disappearing toward the dark entrance of the park. Ava cried, but Ryan's hand closed gently around her arm. "Let him go," Ryan said softly. "Chasing him now will only push him farther." Ava's knees buckled. She sank onto the soaked pavement, palms pressing against the cold ground as if grounding herself against collapse. The swing behind her creaked softly in the wind. "I lost him," she whispered. "I lost him again." Ryan knelt beside her, rain slicking his hair, voice steady but full of ache. "You haven't lost him," he said. "Not forever. Not if we stay steady." But Ava couldn't hear him, not really. She could only hear the echo of her son's footsteps disappearing into the night. Ava bowed her head, rain dripping from her chin. "I don't know how to reach him anymore," she whispered. And somewhere beyond the park shadows, a boy hid beneath his hoodie, shaking, wondering if he'd made the biggest mistake of his life or the only choice he ever had. Morning arrived without warmth. The rain had stopped sometime before dawn, leaving behind a cold stillness that clung to the city like a heaviness people couldn't shake off. At Sterling headquarters, the silence inside the top-floor conference room felt even colder. Ava sat alone at the long table, staring at the miniature architectural model of Sterling Tower, her legacy project, the one she once believed would define her career. Now it looked like something built from regret. Behind it, propped upright on an easel, was the missing poster of Evan. His young face hovered there, quiet and hurting. She rubbed her temples, exhaustion deep in her bones. Every breath felt like a weight she could barely lift. The soft hiss of the door opening broke the silence. Ryan stepped in, holding the key fob Ava had dropped during their frantic search last night. He meant to simply return it and leave. This wasn't his world. Glass walls, expensive suits, rooms that smelled faintly of polished wood and pressure. But when he saw her at the table, shoulders slumped, head bowed, something stopped him. She looked nothing like the powerhouse he saw on television. She looked like a mother who'd run out of answers. "Ava," he said gently. She didn't look up right away. Her voice, when it came, was barely a whisper. "He ran from me, Ryan. My son saw me." And he ran. Ryan pulled out the chair beside her. He didn't sit yet. He just placed a steady hand on the back of it. "Kids don't run because they stop loving us," he said quietly. "They run because they're scared we won't hear them." Ava swallowed hard. She finally lifted her head. "I really thought the treatment center would help him. They told me he'd get structure, support, a chance to rest from the noise. And when did you start believing Evan was—" "Noise?" Ryan asked, his voice compassionate, not accusing. Ava flinched, but she didn't look away. "The more the company grew, the more I felt like I was failing him. Every time he clung to me, every time he asked for one more hour, I felt guilty. And guilt is something I don't know how to carry well." Ryan nodded. "Most of us don't." She sighed, leaning back. "I didn't want to hurt him. I wanted to protect him from the world." Sometimes, Ryan said softly, "the world kids need protecting from is us." That hit her harder than any reporter's question. She let the silence sit for a moment. Then she whispered, "Do you have kids, Mr. Hale?" He sat down across from her, a tired breath leaving him as if he'd been holding it for years. "Just one," he said. "Chloe." A hint of warmth flickered in her eyes. "She's extraordinary." He smiled faintly. "She really is." Ava tilted her head slightly. And her mother. The smile faded. He locked his fingers together and stared at the table as if the wood grain held a memory he couldn't avoid. She died, he said softly. Accident? A hit-and-run driver. I was working overtime. Told her I couldn't talk right then. Told her I'd call her back in 3 minutes. His voice thinned, strained but steady. There's not a day I don't think about that call I didn't make. I was doing what I thought was right, providing. But providing became hiding. From fear. From not being enough. I didn't see how much my little girl needed me to just be present. Ava listened without blinking, every word settling into her like something she'd been avoiding hearing for years. Ryan. I'm so sorry. He nodded. We both lost something we can't get back, but we still have kids who need us to show up now. Not perfectly, just honestly. A long moment passed. Then Ava whispered, I don't know where to start. Ryan leaned back, considering her with a clarity she wasn't used to receiving. Not from board members, not from employees, not from people afraid of losing their jobs if they told her the truth. Start small, he said. Sit with him. Listen without planning your response. Let him talk until he runs out of fear. Ava pressed a hand to her mouth, overwhelmed. He feels like I built a world that didn't include him, she whispered. Ryan softened. I know what that feels like from both sides. In the hallway outside, Chloe's sneakers squeaked lightly. She'd been sitting on a bench pretending to draw, but really listening with the keen sensitivity of a child who understood adults better than they understood themselves. She closed her sketchbook and stepped inside. Miss Sterling, she said gently. Ava looked up startled. Chloe approached her small voice threaded with quiet certainty. Evan doesn't trust grown-ups right now, but he still trusts memories. She held up the sketchbook, especially the happy ones. Ava's throat tightened. Memories, Chloe nodded. Places don't lie to you the way people sometimes do. If you want him to listen, you need to meet him in a memory he loves. Ava blinked, absorbing that. Chloe continued Red Swing Park. It's the only place he talked about like it still meant something. Something in Ava's expression cracked open a dawning realization wrapped in pain. I barely remember that day, she whispered. I was wearing an old t-shirt, not a suit. He was so small. He laughed every time the swing went up. Chloe smiled softly. He remembers it exactly like that. Ava pressed her palms against her eyes, tears pushing through. How did I forget something he held on to for years? Ryan answered for her gently. You were trying to make a life big enough to protect him. But he just needed you inside it. Ava breathed shakily, her resolve quietly forming. What do I do now? She whispered. Before anyone could answer, Chloe opened her sketchbook. On the page was a drawing, Evan on the red swing, Ava standing behind him, hands on the chains, both laughing. Ava covered her heart with her hand. Chloe said softly, If grown-ups keep messing things up, maybe let us kids try this time. Chloe closed the sketchbook with deliberate care, her gaze steady. I have an idea, she whispered, but you have to trust me. Ava exhaled, shaken but hopeful. Ryan leaned forward, and in the quiet room filled with mistakes, memories, and second chances, something shifted for the first time. There was a way forward. The next afternoon, Red Swing Park felt different. Not safer, not gentler, just quieter, as if the whole place were holding its breath. The old swing swayed lazily in the mild breeze, its familiar creak echoing through the nearly empty playground. Chloe entered alone, her steps soft on the worn concrete. She carried her sketchbook tucked under her arm and a small paper bag in her other hand. Her heart beat faster than usual, but she walked with a kind of gentle purpose. Dad had offered to come with her, but she'd shaken her head. This part, I think I have to do it myself. Now she understood why. Sometimes grown-ups made things too big, too complicated. Kids spoke in smaller truths, and sometimes those were the only ones hurting people could hear. She settled on the same bench as before. The metal felt cool against her legs. She flipped open her sketchbook and began to draw absent-mindedly, letting the pencil glide across the page. Birds chattered in the branches overhead. A basketball thudded somewhere far away. Then she felt it. Someone was watching. She kept her eyes on the page, but her heartbeat quickened. A soft scuff on the pavement confirmed it. "Hey," she said quietly. No answer, but she didn't need one. Evan stepped into view, hood-up hands shoved deep into his pockets. His posture was wary, shoulders tight like he expected her to betray him simply by speaking too loudly. He stopped a few feet away. "You came back," he muttered. Chloe looked up at him, not startled, not pushing, just noticing. "I did," she said. "Thought you might want the spot today. So I saved it." He huffed a soft breath that wasn't quite a laugh, more like disbelief that someone had thought of him at all. She patted the bench beside her. "You don't have to talk. You can just sit." He hesitated. Then slowly he sat, leaving a careful space between them. For a long moment, neither spoke. The breeze stirred the sketchbook pages. A distant dog barked. Somewhere, a can rolled across the court. Finally, Chloe broke the silence with a story, not a question. "My mom used to come here with me," she said softly. "She liked the swing. Said it sounded like an old song someone hadn't finished writing." Evan stared at the ground, the rhythm of the swing filling the space between them. "She died when I was little," Chloe continued. "And people kept telling me kids bounce back fast. But I didn't. I still don't sometimes. And grown-ups? They pretend a lot. They pretend they're fine. They pretend they understand. Mostly, they pretend they're not scared." He blinked slowly as if hearing something he'd forgotten how to say out loud. "Do you pretend?" she asked gently. He shrugged. "Pretending's easier. Easier than what he swallowed." His voice cracked. "Easier than being disappointing." Chloe's chest tightened. "You're not disappointing. You don't know me. I know sadness when I see it." He looked away sharply, jaw tensing. Something old and hurting flickered across his face. "I messed everything up," he whispered. "I said things I didn't mean. On that live stream, I just wanted Mom to look at me. Not at her phone, not at her assistants. Just me. And when she didn't, I said something awful. After that, everything got worse. They sent me to that place. They called it treatment, but it felt like punishment." His fingers tugged at a loose thread on his sleeve. "I felt like I was a problem they wanted to solve. Like if they could fix the way I think maybe I'd be easier for her to love." Chloe's heart ached. She understood more than most kids her age. She understood grief and loneliness, and how quiet fears could grow louder when no one listened. "Evan," she said softly, "you're not a problem, and you're not broken." He didn't look at her, maybe because he was afraid he might believe her. She reached into the paper bag and pulled out a folded piece of drawing paper. "I brought you this." She handed it to him without ceremony, no explanation needed. When he unfolded it, he froze. It was the red swing drawn exactly as it looked now, worn chains and all. But beside it were two figures. A younger version of him, feet kicking playfully, and behind him, Ava laughing, no blazer, no makeup, just a mother in an old t-shirt pushing her son. Evan blinked hard. "How do you know about this?" "You told me," Chloe said gently. "Yesterday. You described the moment like it still lived in you." He stared at the drawing. His throat bobbed. "That was a long time ago," he murmured. "Still matters, though. Doesn't it?" He nodded barely, like admitting it out loud might break something open inside him. Then he set the drawing on his lap and leaned forward, elbows on his knees. His voice grew quieter, more vulnerable. "I don't trust adults right now," he said. "Not even her. Especially her. I get that." He lifted his eyes. "But I'm tired, Chloe. Tired of running. Tired of being angry. Tired of holding everything in. She nodded, then let some of it out. And he did. Piece by piece, the confessions spilled. How he cried the first night at the treatment center. How the doctors talked about him instead of to him. How loneliness felt heavier when he could hear other kids sleeping in the next room. How he missed his mom but didn't know how to tell her without feeling weak. How the world online adored the version of Ava Sterling he couldn't reach. Chloe listened quietly completely. When he finally paused to breathe, she asked softly, "If you could keep one memory of your mom forever, which one would you pick?" He closed his eyes. That day on the swing, he whispered, "She wasn't perfect, she wasn't powerful, she was just there, and happy, with me." Chloe smiled gently. "That's the version of her you should tell her about." A gust of wind fluttered his backpack open. A folded newspaper slipped out. Chloe caught a glimpse of the headline, "Sterling Tower Project to Begin Demolition of Red Swing Park Next Month." Her stomach dropped. Evan saw her face change and grabbed the paper quickly, shoving it back inside, but the panic in his eyes said enough. "It doesn't matter," he said quickly. "She's already chosen her world. This one doesn't fit in it." Chloe shook her head, heart pounding. "No. Evan, you don't know everything." But before she could say more, he stood abruptly, gripping his backpack straps. "I have to go." "Evan," he was already walking away, fast, hood up, shoulders stiff. Chloe clutched her sketchbook to her chest, breath unsteady. "They're going to destroy the only place he still believes is real." Her voice shook as she whispered into the wind, "I have to tell Dad. And Miss Sterling. Before it's too late." By the time Chloe and Ryan reached the apartment, the sky had shifted to a muted gray, the kind that felt heavy even without rain. Chloe's steps were quick, her breath tight. She clutched her sketchbook as if it were the only proof she had of the truth burning inside her. "Dad," she said urgently the moment they were through the door, "we can't wait. They're going to tear it down. Red Swing Park. The one place Evan still believes in." Ryan froze mid-step, the jingling of his keys fading into silence. "Chloe," he began carefully, "are you certain?" She opened her sketchbook to the folded newspaper she'd tucked inside, smoothing it out with trembling hands. The headline glared back at them. "Sterling Tower Project Set to Begin Demolition of Red Swing Park. Next month." Ryan read it twice, throat-tightening. He knew corporations moved fast. He knew wealthy neighborhoods swallowed poorer ones. But this wasn't just zoning or development. This was personal. This was the last safe memory a hurting boy still clung to. And Ava, she didn't know. She couldn't know. Because if she did, she wouldn't have knelt in the rain begging her son to come back. Chloe's voice quivered. "He thinks she chose that tower over him. Over the swing. Over everything." Ryan felt something deep inside him shift, an instinct, a responsibility, and a fear he understood too well. "Get your jacket," he said gently. "We're going to her." At Sterling headquarters, the atmosphere felt different from before. Tense, brisk, buzzing with an energy that had nothing to do with compassion. As Ryan and Chloe arrived, several board members walked past them in clipped heels and expensive suits, their conversations sharp and transactional. ROI projections. Public image risk minimal. We need her signature before the media cycle fades. Ryan pressed the elevator button, jaw tight. When they reached the executive floor, Ava was in the glass-walled boardroom surrounded by advisors. Papers slid across the table, voices overlapped, and the model of Sterling Tower, sleek, towering, pristine, sat proudly in the center. Ava, however, looked lost inside the conversation. Her eyes were distant, unfocused. She nodded occasionally, but nothing connected. When she finally noticed Ryan and Chloe in the doorway, something softened just slightly. "Excuse me," she murmured to the board. "I need a moment." She stepped out, closing the door behind her. The muffled voices continued inside. "Ryan, Chloe." "What is it? Is there news?" Chloe didn't hesitate. She opened her sketchbook again, revealing the newspaper clipping. "Miss Sterling," she whispered, "they're going to destroy Red Swing Park." Ava blinked, confused. "What?" "No, that project was approved months ago. It's unrelated." But then she saw the look in Chloe's eyes. The same look Evan had when he was younger, when something mattered deeply, but he didn't know if his mother understood. Chloe held the page out to her. Ava took it, read it, and the color drained from her face. She whispered, "I signed this." Ryan nodded gently. "Last year, before things with Evan escalated." Ava sank onto a nearby bench, the newspaper trembling in her hands. "I forgot," she breathed. "I forgot I approved the land purchase around that neighborhood. I didn't even think about what was there." Her eyes filled with a grief so raw it made Chloe drop beside her. "He thinks you did think about it," Chloe said softly. "He thinks you remembered and chose the tower anyway." Ava closed her eyes, pressing her palms against them as if to stop the truth from shattering her. Inside the boardroom, someone tapped on the glass, gesturing. They wanted her back. They wanted signature statements, commitments. But Ava's world had narrowed to the two people before her. "Ryan," she whispered, voice cracking, "that swing is the only place he ever felt I was truly his mom." Ryan sat beside her, grounding her with his steady presence. "Then saving it might be the only way to show him you still are." Ava inhaled shakily. "The board expects me to sign final approval tomorrow. They're launching the campaign next week. The money, the publicity, my reputation." She trailed off. Chloe looked up at her, gentle but unyielding. "What's the point of a tower," she whispered, "if it stands on the last thing your son still loves?" Ava's breath hitched. She turned the newspaper clipping over and over as if hoping the words would change. Inside the boardroom, a notification chimed on the large screen. The text flashed. "Confirmation needed, final approval. Due in 24 hours. The sound pierced through the glass, an echo of urgency and consequences. Ryan placed a hand on the table, leaning forward slightly. "Ava, whatever you decide, this is where he'll look to see if you meant what you said in that park." Ava stared at him, shaken. "He won't believe words anymore. Not mine. Not after everything." "So don't give him words," Ryan said quietly. "Give him something real." A long silence followed. Ava exhaled, slow trembling a breath that carried years of missteps and missed moments. Her voice was barely audible. "If I cancel this project, the board might remove me. Investors will revolt. The media will shred my reputation." Chloe slid her hand into Ava's. But Evan might come home. Ava's chest tightened, her eyes burned, and in that moment the weight of decades ambition, success pressure, loneliness cracked open inside her. The tower suddenly looked small. Very, very small. She stood abruptly, resolve forming like steel. "Ryan," she said, voice steadying, "I need to speak to them. All of them." He nodded. Chloe squeezed her hand once before letting go. Ava walked back into the boardroom. As the door closed behind her, voices rose, some surprised, some anxious, some irritated. Ryan and Chloe couldn't hear the exact words, but they heard the tone. A tone that said Ava Sterling, for the first time in years, wasn't negotiating as a CEO, she was fighting as a mother. When Ava finally stepped out hours later, her face was pale but determined. "They want my decision by morning," she whispered. "And whatever I choose, I won't be able to take it back." The hallway fell silent. Tomorrow, everything would change. Twilight settled gently over Red Swing Park, filtering through the thinning branches like a fading promise. The city hummed faintly in the background, distant traffic, the clatter of dishes from nearby apartments, the muted thump of a basketball somewhere down the street. But here, in the quiet center of the park, time seemed to stretch. Ava stood alone near the red swing, her breath visible in the cooling air. She'd left her car a block away just to give herself a minute to breathe, to feel something solid beneath her feet. Everything in her world, investors, board members' deadlines, felt impossibly loud. But here the noise fell away. She reached out and touched the swing's chain. The metal was cool against her fingers, holding memory the way humans couldn't. The faint creak echoed in her chest. This is where he laughed, she thought, before I forgot how to show him that I could too. A footstep sounded behind her, slow, steady, familiar. Ryan. He approached with 2 steaming paper cups in hand. Coffee from a corner shop, not from a corporate caterer. Coffee that tasted like conversation, not business. "I didn't mean to interrupt," he said softly, "but I figured no one should sit in a cold park alone." She exhaled a thin laugh. "You'd be surprised how often I've been alone in crowded rooms." Ryan handed her a cup. The warmth seeped into her palms, grounding her. They sat on the nearby bench, the red swing quietly shifting in the breeze. For a moment, they simply listened to the rustle of leaves, the soft whir of the city, the swing's rhythmic whisper. Then Ava spoke, her voice low and fragile. "When I was a kid, my mother worked every job she could find. She missed birthdays, school plays, dinners. I told myself I'd never live like that. I'd never be powerless. I'd make so much money the world could never hurt me or my family." She shook her head, the confession slipping out more easily than she expected. "Somewhere along the way, I confused power with protection, and I thought being successful would fill the places where affection should have lived." Ryan swallowed, listening with the kind of patience that made people feel safe enough to unravel. "You didn't fail because you wanted to give him a better life," he said. "You failed because you thought you had to do it alone." Ava let that settle. It hurt because it was true. When Evan said I wasn't his mom anymore, she whispered, I felt hollow, like everything I'd built was made of glass. And then, when he ran from me last night, I realized glass doesn't matter when your child can't bear to look at you. Ryan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Loving a kid doesn't mean never messing up. It means being brave enough to face the mess, to let them see you try again. Ava looked up, eyes rimmed with exhaustion. "You talk like someone who's made a lot of mistakes." He smiled faintly, the kind that knew sadness well. "I have. When my wife died, I worked harder, longer. I thought success would honor her, but all it did was pull me away from the one person who needed me, Chloe. I convinced myself that if I could build something strong enough, I could outrun grief." He paused, voice softening. "Turns out kids don't need a monument. They need a presence." The truth hung between them, heavy but healing. Ava closed her eyes. "If saving Red Swing Park means risking everything I've built, I'm willing to do it. Evan deserves a mother who chooses him publicly. Not in secret, not later now." Ryan studied her not as a CEO, but as a woman standing on the edge of a life-changing choice. "That won't be easy," he said gently. "The board will come after you. The investors, too." Ava exhaled shakily. "Let them." Wind rustled through the branches above, brushing the red swing in a slow arc. The faint creak echoed, steady and emotional. "I'm announcing it tomorrow," she said, "during the Sterling Tower launch event. They expect a speech celebrating the future of the company. Instead, I'm giving them the truth." Ryan blinked, surprised. "On live stream, yes, with every major news outlet present." She paused, voice trembling. "If I don't say it publicly, they'll quietly undo my decision. This way, they can't." Ryan nodded, admiration warming his tone. "That's brave. It's overdue." They sat in silence a moment. In the distance, a train horn called through the night. A door slammed somewhere. A dog barked in protest. Then Ava spoke again, voice steadier now. "Ryan, can I ask you something? Anything? What if I'm too late? What if Evan has already decided who I am, and who I'm not?" Ryan considered this, his voice thoughtful. "Kids don't just listen to what we say. They watch what we do, and you're about to do something louder than any apology." He turned to look at her. "Show him you're willing to lose the world, to keep him in yours." Emotion tightened her throat. Before she could respond, a faint electronic hum filled the air. At first, she thought it was distant traffic. Then she recognized it. From every screen around the park, from a nearby apartment window, from someone's phone on a bench, from a passing teenager's earbuds came the muffled sound of rehearsals, Sterling event staff testing microphones for the next morning. Testing 1-2, welcome to the Sterling Tower launch. Ava stiffened. Tomorrow was coming fast. Faster than she felt ready for. But ready or not, she'd chosen her side. "I have to do this," she whispered. Ryan's voice was steady. "And you won't be doing it alone." Across the city, cameras were being polished. Backdrops erected. Teleprompters loaded with a script she'd no longer follow. Somewhere on a street corner, Evan paused in front of a store window displaying the announcement poster. The words "Sterling Tower Launch" reflected in his eyes, mixed with fear-anger and something else he couldn't name. He slipped his hands deeper into his hoodie pockets, heart pounding. Tomorrow, everything would collide. Back at the park, a voice crackled from the loudspeakers of the event rehearsal. "Please welcome, Ava Sterling." Ava looked toward the empty swing breath shaking. This time she whispered, "I speak as his mother." And the night held its breath for morning. By the time the Sterling Tower launch event began, the air outside the convention hall buzzed like a living thing. Reporters clustered behind barricades, their voices rising and falling like a restless tide. Camera shutters cracked like tiny bursts of electricity. Inside, the stage lights warmed the room with a soft hum, illuminating a massive 3D projection of the future tower, sleek, brilliant, shimmering like Ava's old ambition. But behind the curtains, Ava Sterling stood perfectly still. Her breath came slow, steady, though her heart shook beneath her ribs. Today was supposed to crown her legacy. Instead, she was about to dismantle it. A stage manager approached headset askew. "Miss Ava Sterling teleprompter is ready. Just be sure to hit the stockholder notes in Section 2. "I won't be using the teleprompter," Ava said calmly. The woman blinked. "Right, I'll let the tech team know." Ava turned her gaze to the house lights which spilled across an audience of investors, journalists, business partners, people she'd once believed were her real world. But not one of them could fill the silence Evan had left behind. Her fingers brushed the small folded note hidden in her pocket, the one Chloe had given her yesterday. "Sometimes grown-ups say, 'I love you' by what they choose to lose." A voice boomed from the stage. "Please welcome, Ava Sterling." Applause erupted like a tidal wave. Ava stepped into the light. For a long moment, she simply stood there absorbing the weight of thousands of eyes watching her. The cameras zoomed closer. The live stream counter ticked upward. But then something remarkable happened. She didn't look at them. She looked at the red swing. In her mind, she saw Evan's small feet kicking, laughter rising, no boardrooms, no deadlines, just sunlight and simplicity. And she knew exactly what she had to say. She leaned into the microphone. "Thank you for being here today," she began, voice steady yet warm. This event was meant to celebrate Sterling Tower, a project designed to elevate this city. But today, I want to talk about something more important. A ripple moved through the audience. Stockholders leaned forward. The board shifted nervously. Ava continued, unflinching. "I want to talk about what success costs and who pays for it." The murmurs grew. Cameras flashed faster. "As many of you know, my son, Evan, has been missing." Her voice trembled, but she didn't break. "What you don't know is that I played a role in that disappearance. Not because I didn't love him, but because I loved my work more than the quiet moments that matter." A gasp spread through the room. Board members exchanged panicked looks. Ava kept going. "I approved a project that would demolish Red Swing Park, the one place where my son felt closest to me. The place he trusted. The place he still returns to. I signed the document without remembering what it meant to him, because I wasn't present enough to remember." Her words echoed with devastating honesty. Across town, in front of an electronics shop, Evan stood frozen as the live stream played on a giant screen. His hood was low, but his eyes were wide, unguarded. Ava drew a deep breath. "I can't undo the years I missed," she said, "but I can choose what I build next. For Sterling," she paused, "and for my family." The audience waited suspended between dread and awe. "I am canceling the Sterling Tower project." Gasps erupted. A few shouted, a few applauded. The board looked like they had collectively swallowed fire. "I will not allow it to destroy the last good memory my son holds of me," she continued. "Instead, I am redirecting our full development budget to rebuild Red Swing Park, transforming it into Sterling Hope Park, an open community space, a place for kids' families, and second chances." Reporters surged forward with questions. Investors whispered frantically. The live stream chat exploded. But somewhere on the sidewalk, Evan stared at the screen, rain gathering in his eyes. Then came the words that shattered him open. "Today," Ava said, voice breaking, "but sure, I am not speaking as a CEO. I am speaking as Evan's mom. And I hope one day he will let me show up not on a screen, but on that red swing." The applause this time wasn't polite. It wasn't rehearsed. It was human, raw, emotional, undeniable. Ava stepped off the stage as the anchors shouted commentary and the board murmured panicked strategies. She didn't pause to greet anyone. She simply walked, calm, determined, heart hammering. When she reached the loading bay doors, she pushed them open. Outside, the wind was cool, the street damp. She walked toward her car, then stopped. Someone stood near the swing-shaped logo on the temporary construction sign. Someone small, someone trembling, feet in worn sneakers. Hood pulled low, hands fidgeting at his sides. "Evan," she whispered. He didn't turn. "Not yet." Her voice softened. "You heard the speech." His shoulders rose with a shaky breath. "You're really not tearing it down?" he asked, voice breaking, like he was afraid the answer would hurt. Ava stepped closer. "No, I'm not tearing down the place where you remember me. At my best." Silence clung to the air. Then Evan spun around, tears trembling along his lashes. "Why did you do that?" he whispered. "Why would you risk everything Ava swallowed? Because I already lost what mattered most." The wind brushed past them both. He stepped closer. "Mom, did you mean it?" "All of it." Her voice broke gently. Every word. His eyes softened, wet and searching. For the first time in months, the distance between them seemed small enough to cross. Evan took one cautious step forward, eyes flickering with hope and fear. "If you're really not tearing this place down," he whispered, "does that mean we can start over?" Ava's breath caught. Behind them, the swing creaked gently as if urging them toward the beginning they both needed. The construction tape around Red Swing Park fluttered softly in the evening breeze, glowing faintly under the dim streetlights. Workers had gone home hours earlier, leaving tools stacked neatly and the swing temporarily roped off. The whole place felt like it was waiting, holding its breath for something fragile, something long overdue. Ava stood just inside the taped boundary, arms folded gently across her chest. She wasn't dressed like a CEO tonight. No blazer, no heels, just a simple sweater and jeans, her hair loosened by the breeze. She looked almost like the young mother she used to be, the one Evan remembered from the swing. Behind her, she heard hesitant footsteps. Ava Ryan's voice was soft, cautious. She turned. Ryan and Chloe stood at the entrance of the park, both unsure if they were intruding. But when Ava smiled, tired, grateful, they stepped closer. "Is he here?" Ryan asked quietly. Ava shook her head. "Not yet, but he said he might come." "Might is good," Chloe said. "Might means he's thinking." A faint laugh escaped Ava, the kind that came from a place somewhere between hope and exhaustion. "Thinking is more than he gave me for months." They waited a moment in comfortable silence, the sounds of the city drifting around them like a low hum. Distant sirens, a dog barking the rustling of leaves as the wind nudged the old swing. And then, footsteps. Slow, careful, familiar. Evan appeared at the far end of the park, hoodie up, hands buried in the pockets. He stopped when he saw them, eyes flicking from Ryan to Chloe, then settling on Ava. She took a step forward, but not too close. "Thank you for coming," she said softly. Evan shrugged, though his voice trembled. "I didn't say I'd stay." "You don't have to," she whispered. "Just letting me see you. That's enough for tonight." He swallowed hard, gaze dropping to the worn concrete. "I heard what you said." "At the event," Ava inhaled, steadying her shaking breath. "I meant every word." Evan's voice cracked. "You embarrassed the board. You made people mad. You risked everything." "I risked what didn't matter," Ava said gently. "What matters is standing right in front of me." He blinked rapidly, fighting tears he didn't want anyone to notice. Chloe stepped forward just enough for him to know she was there, but not enough to steal the moment. "It was loud," she said lightly, "but a good loud." Evan huffed a soft sound somewhere between a laugh and a sniff. Ava shifted her weight, grounding herself. "I want to say something, Evan, and I want you to hear it from the beginning to the end. No interruptions. Then you can say whatever you want back." "Deal." He hesitated, then nodded. She exhaled a shaky breath. "I'm sorry. For the hours I missed. For the moments I brushed off. For treating your feelings like problems to fix. For letting my fear of failing you push you away instead." Her voice softened. "And I'm sorry that I made you believe a tower mattered more than a swing." Emotion shimmered in his eyes. She continued quietly, "I can't buy back lost years. I can't purchase time or memories or the chance to redo the moments I ruined. But I can show up now, not as the CEO everyone sees, just as your mom." Evan stepped forward one slow step like a boy learning how to trust the ground again. "Mom," he whispered, "you didn't ruin everything." The words hit her harder than any criticism ever had. He pushed his hood down, revealing tired eyes and messy hair. "But you have to stop talking to me like I'm a project. Or a press release." His voice cracked. "Just be you." Ava nodded through her tears. "I can do that. I want to do that." A long silence stretched, one that wasn't heavy, just honest. Then Ava asked gently, "Evan, what do you want from me? Not someday. Not in theory. Right now." He lowered his gaze. His fingers shook. "A promise," he whispered. "What kind of promise?" He glanced at the old swing, the misty glow around it, tugging at something deep inside him. "I want you to come see me play basketball. I want you to sit on the bleachers and actually watch." His voice softened to a fragile tremor. "No phone. No assistant whispering in your ear. No looking at your watch every 2 minutes." Ava swallowed hard. Tears pooled in her eyes. "I'll be there," she whispered. "I swear it." He nodded, breathing unevenly. "If you don't come, I don't think I'd forgive you." "I know," she said, not flinching, "and I don't ever want to give you a reason to." That honesty, raw and simple, did more for them in 1 second than years of corporate apologies ever could. A few steps away, Ryan and Chloe exchanged a tender glance. They knew what beginning over looked like. They'd lived it. And now they were witnessing someone else's second chance bloom right in front of them. Evan turned to Chloe, cheeks flushed. "Thanks," he murmured, "for everything." Chloe shrugged like it wasn't a big deal, though. Her smile gave her away. "You're welcome. Don't mess it up." Evan let out a soft laugh. "I'll try." Ava looked at Ryan, next her expression softened, not like a CEO seeking counsel, but like a woman recognizing someone who had stood with her through a storm she didn't know how to weather. "Ryan," she said quietly, "you told me the truth when no one else dared to, and you stayed even when I fell apart in front of you." Her voice thickened. "Thank you for helping me save my son." Ryan's gaze was warm, steady anchoring. You saved him because you chose him. I just reminded you where to look. She smiled, a small, humbled expression that looked more natural on her face than any PR photo ever had. The four of them stood there a moment, the swing squeaking gently behind them, carrying the weight of memories and the promise of what could still be rebuilt. Finally, Ava looked around the taped-off park. This place, she whispered, I want to restore it. For Evan. For other kids. For families who need somewhere safe to land. She turned to Ryan, eyes asking something her voice couldn't yet put into words. Would you help me? Build something real? Something people like us needed when we were young. He didn't answer immediately. The wind brushed past the swing, filling the quiet with its familiar creak. Then Ryan smiled softly. Yeah, I think I can do that. The swing groaned in the wind, steady, rhythmic, almost like applause from the past. Ava looked out over the park's broken benches and cracked pavement. Then, let's begin, she whispered. Tomorrow they would start rebuilding the world, not with steel and glass, but with heart. Spring returned quietly, like someone knocking softly on a door they once hesitated to approach. It brought color back to the city in gentle strokes, and with it came the sound of children laughing inside the newly reopened Sterling Hope Park. The park felt alive in a way no corporate campus ever did. Water splashed from the small fountain. Sneakers squeaked on the basketball court. A choir of giggles rose from the swing set. And in the center of it all stood the restored red swing, its original frame kept intact, its paint fresh but not perfect. The creak in its chain left intentionally as a reminder that some things are meant to stay honest. A simple plaque above it read, "For every kid who just wanted their parent to show up." That morning, Ava stood beneath that plaque with a to-go coffee warming her hands. No assistant hovered nearby. No driver waited at the curb. Her phone, turned off, rested quietly in her bag. She wore jeans, soft sneakers, and a light sweater. She looked nothing like the CEO who once commanded boardrooms and news cycles. She looked like someone who'd finally come home. Across the park, Ryan walked toward her with that familiar calm in his step clipboard under one arm. He was coordinating weekend volunteer rotations, greeting families, checking on activity centers. He'd been promoted to Director of Community Engagement, a role that fit him better than any uniform ever had. "You're here early," he said with a smile. "I wanted to see the park before it gets crowded," Ava answered, gaze drifting thoughtfully across the playground. Ryan raised an eyebrow. The old Ava would have said she had 50 emails waiting. A soft laugh escaped her. The old Ava resigned from the board last night. Ryan froze mid-step. "You resigned?" She nodded, a quiet certainty in her voice. "I stepped down from the board and from day-to-day operations. I'm keeping a small advisory role, but nothing that pulls me away from my life anymore." She took a breath she hadn't taken in years. "I want my hours back, my presence back, my son back." Ryan let that sink in, the magnitude of a woman who had spent her life chasing skyscrapers, now choosing something as simple and human as time. "That's a big step," he said softly. "It's the first one," she corrected gently. A burst of laughter rose from the basketball court. They turned to see Evan dribbling clumsily as a group of younger kids swarmed him. His posture was looser now, shoulders relaxed, hoodie unzipped. His laughter rose above the court like a sound he'd forgotten he could make. Beside the court, Chloe sat on a portable stool, an art pad resting on her lap as she guided a handful of younger children through a drawing activity. A small display titled "Kids See More Than We Think" showcased her sketches, raw, emotional snapshots of the human moments adults often overlooked. "Look at them," Ryan murmured, eyes softening. "They're okay." Ava exhaled, emotion threading through her voice. "For the first time in a long time, so am I." And then Mom Evan's voice carried across the park. "Come on, Coach, said you're observing?" "Today," Ava blinked. Observing, Ryan chuckled. Parent-teacher basketball conference. Coach's idea. Evan jogged toward them, slightly breathless. And you promised you'd come." "You remember right," Ava touched his shoulder. "I remember. I'm here." He looked at her carefully, searching for the flicker of distraction he'd grown up expecting. But he didn't find it. "You turned your phone off?" he asked quietly. She nodded. "For the whole morning." His voice trembled. "Okay. Good." As he ran back to the court, Ryan murmured, "He's keeping score, you know." "I want him to," Ava whispered. "Accountability works both ways." They walked together to the bleachers. The soundscape around them pulsed with life. The tap of basketballs, the slap of high-fives, the squeal of sneakers, the whoosh of the swing behind them sliding back and forth. Ava didn't check the time. She didn't sit on the edge of her seat as if rushing off to a meeting. She sat fully gratefully present. "Feels different, doesn't it?" Ryan asked. "What does being here?" he said gently. "Without being somewhere else at the same time." She inhaled slowly. "It feels like breathing again." A whistle blew on the court. Evan motioned for her to watch a play. She stood, eyes following him with genuine attention. He missed the shot. But her cheer was so full, so unfiltered that he didn't mind at all. When she sat back down, her voice softened. "You know, I used to think an empire was measured by height and glass and profit margins." Ryan turned toward her. "And now?" She looked around the park, the families, the kids, the swing swaying gently in the breeze. Now she whispered, "I think a true empire is made of moments you don't miss, of people you don't walk away from, of places where healing can begin." Ryan's hand rested gently near hers on the bench, not touching, just close enough to let her know he was there. She didn't pull away. Evan scored a basket. Chloe cheered wildly. Ava laughed, wiping the corner of her eye. Life felt simple, earned, honest. Later, as the morning sun climbed higher, Ava stood at the center of the park and watched families gather around the swing, the fountain, the court. This patch of earth felt more meaningful than any skyscraper she had ever dreamed of. Ryan joined her quietly. "You rebuilt this place," he said. "No," she corrected gently. "We rebuilt it. Evan rebuilt trust. Chloe rebuilt hope. You rebuilt the heart of it." "And you," Ryan asked softly. Ava looked out across the park, her voice settling into something tender and sure. "I'm rebuilding myself," she said. "Not as a CEO, not as a public figure." She placed a hand over her heart. "But as the mother my son deserves and the woman I want to become." Evan called from the court. "Mom, you're up for the next round." Ryan chuckled. "Sounds like the reigning champion of recess is waiting." Ava smiled, a real, easy smile that reached her eyes. "Let's go," she said. Together they walked toward the laughter, toward connection, toward a new kind of empire. One built not on steel and ambition, but on presence, forgiveness, and hearts learning to begin again. Before we close today's story, I want to leave you with this. Sometimes the most powerful transformations in our lives don't come from grand victories or perfect choices. They come from the quiet courage to admit we were wrong, to show up when it matters, and to rebuild the small, simple places where love once lived. Ava learned that success means nothing if you lose the people you're working so hard for. Ryan learned that even a wounded heart can lead others toward healing. And Evan and Chloe reminded us of a truth adults often forget. Children don't need perfection. They just need us to be present. So maybe this story speaks to you in some way. Maybe you've had to rebuild trust with someone you love. Maybe you've watched a parent, a child, or a friend struggle to find their way back. Maybe you've lived a moment where a simple gesture changed everything. If you've ever experienced something similar or witnessed a second chance that changed a life, I'd love for you to share your story in the comments. Your words may be the light someone else needs tonight. And before you go, let me know. Where are you watching from? I'm always amazed by how far these stories travel and how many hearts they touch around the world. If this story brought you comfort, hope, or even one quiet moment of reflection, please consider subscribing to the channel. It helps these stories reach more people who may need them, and it means the world to us. Thank you truly for spending your time here, for listening, and for allowing this story to be a small part of your day. Until next time. Take care of your heart, take care of each other, and remember, every day is a chance to begin again.